What's going on, guys? My name is Wade with TechDaily, and in this video, we are checking out the new Motorola Moto G Power 5G. So a couple of things to know about this phone right off the bat. First, it's no secret that I have been quite critical of Motorola in the past, mainly because, well, their phones are bad. But Motorola seems to be on a bit of a redemption tour for 2024, and this year's various Moto Gs seem to be vastly improved across the board, this one included. The other thing to know, Motorola's power nomenclature for this device in particular doesn't really hold much weight anymore. Years ago, this phone was touted as having a massive battery that could power this phone longer than most without needing a charge. Now, not only do all Motorola's have the same big 5,000 milliamp battery that this phone has, but plenty of other non-Moto phones have bigger batteries too. So I'm not exactly sure what the power in Moto G Power means anymore, but maybe there's something I'm missing. Regardless of all of that, this is sort of a mid-range Moto device intended for folks who want a decent, unlocked phone at a fair price. It's mainly going to be sold here in the US. Motorola uses other G model numbers for the European lineup, and I'm of course going to fill you in on everything you need to know here. But first things first, as always, let's just quickly unbox this thing so I can show you the very few items Motorola includes inside the package. Slicing into the sticker and flipping open the eco-friendly lid, the first thing you get is the phone itself. Mine is in pale lilac, but it's also available in the more familiar midnight blue colorway. There's a cardboard divider that separates the included accessories, which for this phone are just a single USB-C cable for charging, a SIM ejector tool, and a stack of paperwork. Motorola included a wall plug with their phones up until I think last year, but it seems that's no longer the case, which honestly is a shame because they've literally never included a decent fast charger for their smartphones, even though these phones support a faster charging standard now. It's a bit of a shame, really. So here is the new 2024 Moto G Power once again. And one nice change Motorola made this year when you set up their phones is that you aren't forced to install all the bloatware and Moto Hub garbage that polluted last year's device. It's all optional, and I highly recommend unchecking all of this stuff to save yourself a headache. Now, I first want to touch on pricing and availability because this is an extremely important bit of information with really all these Moto devices. The full retail price of the 2024 Moto G Power is $299. That's what I paid. That's what you'll see on Motorola's website, and you can buy the device unlocked for use on almost any major carrier. However, Motorola's smartphones are almost always discounted just a few weeks after launch. So on Amazon right now, this phone is already a bit cheaper. And here in the US, the G Power is going to be sold through some of the prepaid networks like Cricket Wireless, for example, and will likely be highly discounted or even free with a new line. So there are plenty of opportunities to not pay full retail for the G Power. And if you want to do some comparison shopping of your own, I'll leave some links down below in the video description to where you can get this phone at its cheapest current price. So the first big change with the 2024 G Power is its size. Motorola somehow made this phone even bigger. It's now a 6.7-inch smartphone. That's the screen size corner to corner, and it still has those more noticeable black borders and thicker bottom chin framing the display. You get a screen-to-body ratio that's not quite 85%, and in the hand, the big, tall, elongated 20:9 aspect ratio of the screen, coupled with the extra chunky bezels, make the phone feel big and sort of top-heavy. This phone is literally taller in overall dimensions than the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, for example, so you are definitely going to be stretching your fingers to try to reach the top edge and corners. Around back, Motorola decided on a totally different design and material makeup for this phone. The back cover is a silicone polymer material, essentially an eco or faux leather, and that even extends to the camera bump. It honestly doesn't feel cheap or plasticky at all. It's quite nice, and I'm surprised how good the material is. It reminds me of my leather-bound journals and notebooks that I use, and the pale lilac color is quite subtle, honestly. It's closer to a light purple than pink in person, and it's just sort of the essence of a color. The sides of the phone are still the same hard plastic, very flat design that makes the phone feel quite a bit thinner, and the only other thing to note, Motorola did retain the water repellent distinction even with this new build. Taking a look around, on the left side is your dual SIM and micro SD card tray. The phone supports a single physical SIM card along with a micro SD card card, and it does have eSIM support as well. 128 gigabytes is the only model that's available for the G Power this year, which isn't too bad, but it is half the amount of storage as last year's phones. However, it's still nice to be able to pop in a micro SD card and double or triple that storage capacity. On the right side, familiar power and volume buttons. The power button does double as your fingerprint sensor for unlocking, and this to me seems perfectly fine. No complaints as far as setting it up or testing it out. There's nothing really at the top of the phone. At the bottom, the headphone jack remains, alongside the USB-C port for charging and downward firing speaker. There is a secondary loudspeaker within the earpiece up at the top below the selfie camera, and around back, just 2 camera lenses on this phone this year, which I'll talk more about later. So if you were hoping for some improvements with the display, like I was, well, we're going to be a bit disappointed here. Motorola has used, I think, the same general display technology for the last few years now, and it's really starting to show its age. The massive 6.7-inch screen on this phone is an IPS LCD panel. It's a full HD 2400 by 1080 resolution, at least, packing in some 393 pixels per inch, which is perfectly fine even if you're picky about resolution. It's also a 120Hz high refresh rate display, which is great. Just remember to enable that option in settings if you want to take full advantage of it. The phone definitely feels fast and smooth and responsive, and that's honestly kind of a flagship feature. The big bummer here is still just the fact that Motorola is keeping LCD displays alive on their smartphones. You can see just how dim and glare prone the display is, and cranking that brightness up all the way doesn't really help it much. It's dull and void of any real color. It's dim and practically a mirrored finish. It's not something that should be offered on a $300 phone. By comparison, Samsung's new A25, which is about $200, has a Super AMOLED 120Hz screen that peaks at 1,000 nits of brightness. I think what irks me most here is just that the screen is what you look at most. It's sort of the defining feature, the essence of a smartphone, and I can't believe in 2024 that Motorola still hasn't opted for something better. It can't possibly be that much more expensive or difficult to incorporate, right? Given all the other improvements to this phone, which I'll touch on in a moment, the dim LCD display is really my biggest and, at this point, my only real gripe with this phone. For your out loud listening, the dual speaker setup on the G Power is pretty decent. I'm not going to complain much here. Motorola took the dual speaker feature away a couple of years ago, so I'm glad to have it back, and I think it gets the job done, all things considered.
Under the stars up in the sky, directions hard to find. Under the stars up in the sky, I got lost at night. Under the stars up in the sky, directions hard to find. Under the stars up in the sky, I don't wanna take this, I don't wanna break this.
One big area of improvement with the Moto G Power this year is with speed and performance. And I'm not sure if this was Motorola's intention necessarily, but you could pivot the power distinction for this phone here if you wanted. Inside, you get the 1 year newer MediaTek Dimensity 7020 chipset, a nice step up from the older Dimensity 930 in last year's phone. And you also get 8 gigabytes of RAM this year instead of 6. Here are the Geekbench scores, so you can see the specs and some numbers you can compare to other devices. And I will say that for one, Motorola's Android experience, while still very much skinned and customized to look very Motorola, is about as simple and bare bones as can be. Without the extra bloatware apps and Moto Hub junk, this phone has maybe 25 total apps pre-installed, with half of them being Google's own suite of apps, and a relatively smooth and straightforward interface that I think most everyone would be happy with. I know this isn't the raw Android experience or feature-packed Google or Samsung setup you might get with other flagship phones, but for folks looking for a super simple, easy-to-use Android device, Motorola, I think, has honed in on offering just that with their sort of flair. And the phone also feels noticeably faster and more responsive than some of the previous Moto devices I was quite critical of. I don't know that Motorola has ever really prioritized performance in any of their Moto G devices, but this this is a phone that to me feels quite solid, and I'm actually looking forward to testing it out in the coming days rather than dreading it like I previously would have. The biggest downside to having a Moto device nowadays is Motorola's lack of any consistent or long-term software updates. I mean, some of Motorola's higher-end devices only recently received Android 14, and chances are, after about 2 years, you won't see any more major updates anyway. I feel like people are quick to swap out these Moto devices almost every year though, given the deals and discounts from the carriers, so that's maybe not a huge deal. And if you don't care much about the latest Android version and just want a decent, basic Android experience on a fast and reliable smartphone, well, that seems to be what Motorola is offering here. Now, I mentioned earlier that the power in Moto G Power used to refer to the bigger than average battery. And this phone still has a decent sized battery inside, 5,000 milliamps, but lots of phones nowadays have 5,000 milliamp batteries, and you don't see them bragging about it. The thing that bugs me though is with a bigger sized display, the battery is going to presumably be taxed even more than before. And considering how gigantic this phone really is, Motorola totally could have upped the battery size, I would imagine, to actually make this phone stand out. I mean, even the $120 Moto G Play has a 5,000 milliamp battery this year. What Motorola did add, however, is 15-watt wireless charging, which is great. I think that's a first for the Moto G devices, and the wired charging speeds have been bumped up to 30 watts. Plenty fast. You just have to supply your own fast power plug yourself to get those speeds. So I guess with that stuff, the Moto G Power is still somewhat deserving of its name, but to a lesser extent than in years past. Finally, when it comes to the cameras, Motorola did the right thing actually and ditched 2 useless lenses for 1 decent one, something I've been begging them to do for years. The dual lens setup now consists of seemingly the same 50 megapixel f1.8 aperture main lens as last year, but now with a new 8 megapixel ultra wide lens. Gone are the dumb depth sensor and useless macro lenses, and up front, I believe it's the same 16 megapixel selfie camera as last year. Now inside the camera app, Motorola's shooting modes and features I feel are still a bit limited. For starters, this phone tops out at just 8x digital zoom. You also have just 1080p 30fps video recording, though Motorola seems to have added OIS for enhanced stabilization this year. There are some manual controls and other essentials like night vision and dual lens capture, but arguably this is a camera setup that still feels rather budget when compared to other $300 devices nowadays. I suppose if you want to just snap a simple pic of your food or your pet, it's not terrible. And like I said, the addition of the wide-angle lens is especially useful, but taking a pic at some of the sample shots here, I don't know, the images to me just look not so great and sort of aligned with Motorola picture quality of years past. Over-processed, not a lot of detail, strange color reproduction. I don't know that Motorola has ever been one to have decent cameras in their smartphones, but there's gotta be something a little better than this. So what all is new with the new 2024 Motorola Moto G Power? Well, it's bigger, that's for sure. It rocks a fresh new design and materials that's definitely unique. It's got a newer processor, more RAM, faster wired charging and wireless charging too, and it has a very useful ultra-wide camera lens. Altogether, this very well may be the most updated Moto device we've seen in the past 3 or 4 years at least. And if you've been holding on to an older Moto G device or maybe ditched Motorola entirely, this could be the Moto G you've been waiting for. But what do you guys think about the new 2024 Moto G Power? Did Motorola bring enough new stuff here for it to be a worthwhile upgrade? Are you considering getting it? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, of course. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Be sure to follow TechDaily on Twitter and subscribe to the TechDaily YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys later.